All right. Bigger pockets. How is everybody doing? Welcome to our live show. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We are on YouTube and probably some other channels that I don't even know. I guess when you're not a millennial or whatever the new code is for people, you don't know what they are. But anyways, I am Steve Rozenberg, investor, author, entrepreneur, speaker. I'm also the vice president of investor education for Mind Property Management. And today is going to be a really, really good show. I'm very excited to talk about this. If anyone's been following me, I've been fortunate enough to have some of the biggest name influencers come on the show and talk about a lot of different things that are going on in the world. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on, and you know, I know that we are a real estate community, we are an entrepreneurial community, but there's a lot more to just real estate and just buying properties, right? Selling properties, owning them. There's a lot to this, and so today I was going to make this more of a raw session. I'm going to try to move my screens around here. I got like 15 screens. It's like NASA going on. Today, I'm going to make this a little bit more of a raw session and just kind of talking from the heart to help people because, you know, a lot of people I know are very nervous about what's going on. There's a lot of concern and there's a lot of fear. And so I want to kind of talk on that because I've been through several cycles. And while I don't have all the answers, I may be able to give a certain light and a certain perspective to what's going on that maybe other people are not used to hearing. And, you know, I come from a different industry, from the airline industry, which is having its troubles and its challenges right now. And I've been through many cycles with them over the years. So, you know, we're going to talk about when things get tough, kind of how you deal with it and how you handle that. So, first of all, wherever you're from, do me a favor and put it in the comment section. I know Facebook likes it. Bigger Pockets likes it. I'd like to know where you are viewing from. I've had a lot of people from all over the world recently that have viewed my stuff either on Instagram or Facebook, and they've kind of seen what we're doing and been very excited about that. And so I'd like to know where you are from, where you're calling and watching and all that kind of stuff. And I'd like to know kind of what your fears are, because I think we all have fears, whether they're real or not. If they're real to you, then they are real, right? So some people say, oh, that's stupid. That's not even realistic. Well, if that's a fear that you have, then it is real. And so the only way I can kind of know what is going on and what your challenges are is if you comment, you engage, you have conversation, because that's how we all learn. Everybody learns by engaging, right? If you're just sitting here and you don't do anything and you don't get involved in the conversation, then I can't really help you. And I can't try to get the information to give back to you. And so, you know, as we sit here today, we're all going through some very, very scary times, right? I think it's safe to say we all know that there is some stuff going on, and it's kind of like, you know, everybody is waiting for that other shoe to drop. We're hoping it doesn't. We're kind of afraid that it does. And so I think this is a good, safe place for all of us to talk and try to have conversations to decide, how do we get through this? Because we're going to get through this eventually, whether we want to or not. Just like a bad meal that you eat, it will pass at some point and it'll be through us and we will be moving on to eat something else, right? So this cycle and what we're dealing with, it is going to pass. How we react and deal with the other side of this will be a big question about how we react to it. So I'd like to know kind of what people are concerned about and what some of their fears are. You know, right now, it is a very scary time. There's no doubt about it. And we, in my opinion, are in round one of a 12-round fight. And we just got punched in the face very, very hard. And anyone that has been in a long fight like that knows that if you get hit that quickly in the fight, you're in for a long day. So I think we are in for a very long round. I don't think that this is going to be short. I think this is going to be long. And I honestly, I think it could be something that could be advantageous and opportunistic for you, or it can be the worst thing that you experience, depending on how you look at things, right? And how you handle things. And, you know, I always tell people I can be nice or I can be honest. I can't be both. So I can be honest and I can tell you what's going on. and I can tell you what I think is going to happen and what you should do, but it may not be what you want to hear. But if I didn't tell you what I thought and I wasn't honest, then that's not really helping you, in my opinion. Just lying to you and telling you everything's going to be fine and we're all going to, ride off on unicorns and this is going to be great, I don't think is realistic. And so one thing that people know about me is that I'm pretty realistic and I'm pretty firm. And I'd like to know, wow, we got a lot of people here. Nice. Okay. So, my background being an airline pilot, I went through this during 9/11. Okay. 9/11 hit. Nobody was expecting it, just like this, right? This was not systemic, meaning this was not something that we did and caused. And it was the 2008 recession, right? That was a lot of missteps and greed and other things. And then we kind of saw that coming. This is not the same case, in my opinion. Just like 9/11, nobody saw coming, but we had to deal with the results. And being an airline pilot, going through 9/11, that was something that I had to really understand how vulnerable I was as being an employee and some of the things that I had to change in my life and change how I thought. And I was doing a podcast show this morning with someone and a good friend of mine, and he talked about the crash, the COVID-19 crash. And I thought to myself, I don't know if I would call it a crash, in my opinion. I don't think that's the right way to look at it, because the words we say, those come from our thoughts, right? And our thoughts drive our decisions. And so when we say these things like crash, we could say it's an opportunity, right? Because when we think of a crash, when I think of a car crash, I'm thinking this is going to hurt. There's nothing good that comes out of a car crash. It's going to be painful. It's probably going to be expensive. And there's not going to be a good outcome from this, right? And that's what we think of a crash. So when we say, is the economy crashing? To me, I don't see another way to look at that as anything positive or a way to grow. But I think that we all know and have learned from the past that there will be more wealth created within the next 12 to 18 months than there has been in the last 10 years. Just like the last down cycle, right? This is cyclical. It goes up and it goes down and it goes up and it goes down. That's what this does, right? Since the beginning of time, if you look at anything, there are cycles. This is just another cycle that many people have not been going through. And if you haven't been going through a cycle, this can be very scary, right? This is kind of your first round in the rodeo, right? And if you've been in this industry long enough, or any industry, I've been in the airline business for 20 something years. I know I don't look that old, but I am. But I've been in the airline industry for a long time, and there are cycles in the airline industry, right? There are cycles in the real estate industry. This is no different. So how do you handle and deal with fear? Because fear it's a very dangerous tool, right? It's like a double-edged sword. It can be something that we can utilize as a tool, or it can be used against us and it can paralyze us. So I'm curious how people deal with fear and what they think about dealing with it. And that's what I'd like to know, because again, when we talk about failure, right? A lot of people think of failure and they think like, oh, I don't want to fail. Well, I've been mentored and coached by some of the amazing people in the world and some of the smartest people that I've just been honored to talk to. And every single one of them, the one thing they've told me is the reason they are successful is because they failed. And I remember talking to a guy one time and he told me, you want to know the secret to succeeding? And I thought it was going to be this big prolific thing. He said, fail fast and fail often. And he said, learn from those failures and be sure to understand how to get back up. And he said, the quicker you get up, the better you're going to be. Because he says, pretty soon, you're going to be looking for those failures. It's almost like a game. It's almost like a puzzle. And so when I look at what's going on right now, right? Some people, I could be standing next to someone and they could be talking about the fear of everything going on, of a crash, right? All the words they're using. And I could be talking about the opportunity and how I can amplify and increase my net worth and increase my wealth. Same situation, different way to look at it. So what makes me think of what's going on differently? It's because I'm not afraid to fail, because I failed so many times. a ton of times, let me tell you, in everything I've done, I have failed, right? Even riding a bicycle, I have failed. I think everybody, when you get on a bicycle, when you get up, fall, get up, fall, every time you fall, that's called a failure, right? Now, if you never get up and you never ride again, then you failed at riding a bicycle. But if you get back up, that's a lesson. Now, hopefully you learned at some point to ride a bike, or you understand that maybe you should get training wheels or something. But the point is you have to learn that failure is part of the learning cycle. So I've got a lot of people here that are making comments. Thank you very much, by the way, for making comments, because I really want to hear what you're saying. Let's see. Lucas Skenwiski. All right. I hope I got that right. If I butchered it, I apologize. So it says here, fears the economy is failing further down, tenants not paying rent, cannot evict due to new laws, getting stuck further in the hole with no cash flow. So yes, I would agree. That does suck. There is no doubt about it. I'm not going to say there's a great way you should get up and smile every morning, right? But let me ask you this. At some point, what is the worst thing that could happen? I mean, what is the worst thing? Well, I would say the worst thing that could happen is you could lose all the properties. You could go bankrupt, and you could have zero, right? That is probably the worst case scenario, right? But is there jail that you go to that if you lose your properties, is there lose your property jail, right? No. What does it mean? It means you got to start over again. And when you start over again, what happens? Well, what happens is you realize that now maybe you need to think differently about how you run your business. Maybe instead of having 5 properties that don't have enough capital, maybe you have 3 properties that are very well capitalized and you have enough reserves, right? And trust me, I have been in these situations where I have been over leveraged, I have been over capitalized. And you know what? Just when you think, man, I should not be, something happens. And life has a way of teaching you that lesson with a wrecking ball when it comes back with force to teach you that lesson. But here's my question. Let's say you lose all of this, right? And I'm just saying worst case scenario. I hope it doesn't happen, but let's go off of the fear, right? And these are things that I get. It could keep you up at night, right? Because unless you're in this position, you don't know what it's like to have these sleepless nights. And I've had them, right? I know what it's like to have, 40, 50 houses and I'm not paying the mortgages and I don't know how I'm going to make this work because my eviction rates are so high. I got shitty properties. I know what that's like. So I'm not talking from glass houses. I have walked this walk that you're talking about. Now, what is worst case scenario? Worst case is you lose the houses, you lose all your money. But what if this lesson, and let's just say you lose $500,000, right? I don't know how much these houses are, but let's just say you lose that much money. What if this lesson turns around and makes you $3 million because now you're purchasing correctly, you're capitalizing correctly, and you learn a lesson? Would that be worth it? Now, I don't know. The answer may be yes, it may be no, but the question is there is a way to look at these as lessons. Now, when it's happening, it is not a lesson that you want to learn. I get that. However, there are lessons to be learned that you can take back and go, you know what? That just sucked. I should not have done that. I learned a lesson. I hated it, but you know what? I will never do that again, right? And that is the quote unquote school of hard knocks, right? We learn our lessons this way. And unfortunately, I hope it doesn't happen to you, Lucas. But if it does, you're still going to wake up in the morning. The sun is still going to come up. Your credit will be repaired and you will be able to buy properties and get investments. That will happen. Will it suck going through it? Absolutely. But it's not the end of the world. So is it fear, or is it the fear of not knowing what the next step is? And that's kind of the question, right? We just fear the fear of the unknown. We don't fear the fact that we lose this, right? Lose the money. At some point, you may want to say, let's just get it over with. Let me just give them back and be done with it so that I can get this lesson over with and move on. So, again, I'm trying not to sugarcoat it, but I am trying to say it is a reality and it's something that we have to be realistic in, because this sandbox called real estate that we play in, there is a lot of glass in this sandbox and there's a lot of people that do get hurt a lot. And these cycles that I've been through several, right? Since 2001, I've been through the 2001, I've been through the recession, I've been through SARS, I've been through H1N1. I've been through Hurricane Harvey. I've been through Hurricane Ike, the global recession, the oil bust. I've been through several of these in Houston, right? So this is just the sandbox that we are in. And I have been through it. And I can tell you those lessons that I learned helped me grow a multi-million-dollar property management company and sell it. I would have never have gotten involved in property management. I don't know why I did now, but I never would have had I never failed on my rental properties. At the time, didn't see it that way. Downstream, I'm like, man, these lessons made me who I am. So hopefully that helped. All right, so we got Dede. Should we keep? Oh, wow, jumped. Sorry about that, Dede. Dede Ellis, should we keep buying or wait until next year? Our empty units are slower to fill right now. Yeah, Dede, I get it, and I think I saw you're in Houston. Yeah, you know, the answer is you got to go off the numbers. The numbers dictate the deal. Now, a lot of people I'm talking to, they're saying this could be a 2 or 3 year crunch, right? They are now saying that this is not going to bounce back right away. Even if businesses open when they open, right? This is not all of a sudden going to jump back for us because of the fact that it's got to take a while, right? We don't even know the effects yet. They're saying this could still dip another 20% down lower once the ramifications of all this come, because right now the government is propping it up. So to answer your question, I would go off of the deals and see what the numbers are saying. And if the numbers are showing that it's a good deal, then I would move forward. I mean, I'm looking for deals right now. I think it's a little bit premature, but I think if you have the equity in your property and you can flex a little bit to bring your rents down to get them rented, I think you will get them rented. I mean, I've got properties here. I just had a vacancy. I got it filled. So I think there are still people that are renting, right? That doesn't go away. They don't turn into sugar and melt away. They do still rent. So I think that you can get it rented, but I think your numbers need to be revised when you're looking at deals now, because it now is a buyer's market, or will soon be. And when it's a buyer's market, this is when stuff starts going on sale. And when stuff's on sale, this is when you need to buy. So I wouldn't wait for the perfect time for it to bottom out, because there is no perfect time. I would, again, when people are greedy, that's when people get in trouble, right? You wait, and all of a sudden the numbers start coming up and you're like, shit, I missed the window. So I'm not a big believer in waiting. But I guarantee you in the next 6 months, we've got an election year, which I don't believe that I think the current administration is going to do everything they can to keep the economy up during the election phase. So I think that it's going to be propped up, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but in my opinion, the current administration is going to keep it propped up so that we are not in a crashing economy when we're in an election. So I think because of that, there's going to be some artificial bump here. And so I would be very cautious on what the numbers are doing, what interest rates are doing, all of those things. And again, it depends on where you live, right? If you live in a city that has one industry and that industry is shut down, well, who's going to rent the properties, right? It may be time to buy them, as long as you can buy them with a proper holding time. You may have to get a reserve that says, you know what, instead of a 3-month reserve, I better have a 9-month reserve, because I may be holding this thing for quite a while. So, my opinion, when you're looking at deals, when you're, everybody says have a plan A, have a plan B. I don't believe in different plans, in my opinion. I think if you have a plan A and a plan B, that just tells me that you don't believe in your plan A and you're setting yourself up for failure because you're already ready to jump ship to plan B. I would rather say have a plan A, but have multiple exit strategies. Buy the deal based on the numbers, based on the data, based on the facts, and have different exit strategies. So when I look at a deal, I may look at that and say, okay, I'd like to rent it, although I could do an owner finance, I could do a wrap, I could just flip it. So I've got different ways to exit this property. So I think that's the important thing when you're looking at how you do this. You decide how you're going to exit. Having plan A, plan B, plan C, I just don't think that's a good way to go about business models. That's just my opinion. I'm sure someone else smarter than me has a different opinion. I just know that when I'm not focused and I don't have clear focused intention to make something work, that's when it falls apart, because I'm like, well, I could do this, could do that, could go here, could go there. That's not the way I want to go about it. I want to say, I'm going here, I'm going down this path, And if something happens, I can go left, I can go right, I can go center, but I'm still going down this path, right? You can't go down two paths at one time. So hopefully that helps. All right, let's see who else we got here. All right, Garrett. I'm going to try my best to say your last name. I probably will not get it right. Osthusian. I don't even think I got that right. All right, but I will just say it anyways. Garrett. Real estate fear of having to take on tenants and the possibility of them losing their job in 6 months. How do I find and place tenants that will be able to pay rent? That's a very good question because these are unknowns now, right? You may very well place a tenant right now that doesn't have a job, right? That's possible. You can talk to their boss and they say, yep, as of today, they are working. That's all they have to say, really, right? And you got to be careful what you ask because there is still fair housing laws. And there is a lot of reasons that landlords get sued because they don't know how to ask the right questions. They don't know that they're violating fair housing and discrimination laws because there are certain things that you can ask and there's certain things you cannot ask. So be very, very careful the questions you ask a resident. Just because it's COVID-19 and all this is going on, it does not give you the right to negate the current law. So be very careful about that. Now, there are some things that you can do where you can actually want to see deposits into their bank account to see that they are getting paychecks. You can get a letter maybe from their landlord that says, you know, we are not planning to do any layoffs in the next 30 days, right? That's possible. But, you know, here's the thing that I would suggest is at some point you need to be responsible and do your homework. Meaning if I had a tenant, I would want to know, okay, well, what industry are they in, right? If they're in the tourism industry, well, that's going to tell me that that may not be an industry that is going to be long sustaining right now, currently, right? So that could be an effect of me not accepting them, right? Now, I will tell you though, if you don't accept them, you better have that in your qualifications of who you do and who you do not accept. You do not have the right to just throw your opinion out there as to who you do and do not accept, because that can be construed as discrimination, which could be a fair housing violation. And I'm not sure where your properties are located, but you want to be very careful about that. Everybody has to be treated the same. So, you know, here's the thing. Nobody has a crystal ball, right? You don't have a crystal ball to know what's going to happen a week from now, let alone 6 months from now. I mean, shit, if you would have gone back 3 months from ago and said, hey, in 3 months, this world is going to stop. The economy is going to come to a grinding halt. You would have been like, there's no way that's going to happen. Are you kidding me? Nobody could have guessed this. So how are they going to guess that this could happen in 6 months? Nobody has a clue. Now, you could do things where you're looking at making two incomes. You may want to see two incomes to say, okay, I'm going to bet the odds. You could increase the amount of income per the rent. So normally it's about 2.5 to 3 times. Everyone's different, just saying generally. But you could make that higher. You could say, I want to see 4 times, right? So that you're trying to bet these odds. But, you know, the reality is unfortunately, nobody knows. And you could try to make a 6-month lease. You know, again, there's a lot of things you could do to audibilize on this with the revisit down the road. But fear in not doing anything, not taking the action that you should be taking, that will be worse, in my opinion. Make a plan, document it, disclose it, and then work the plan, in my opinion. Hopefully that helps. So Amanda Bales says, by the way, thanks for the comments, guys. So keep the comments coming because hopefully this is helping other people too. It helps me as well. So I like the comments. So Amanda says, do you think a newbie should JV with someone else or do it yourself and figure it out? Wow, that's a good question. So I am not a big proponent on JVing. And here's the reason why. My first question, Amanda, is what do you bring to the table and what does that person bring to the table, right? Partnerships dissolve, more partnerships dissolve in the court of law than they do going to fruition. So you have to ask yourself, why does that happen? What is the reason? Well, the first question is what do you bring to the table? What do they bring to the table? All right. Do they have a strength that is your weakness? right? So if you say, I don't know anything, but I'm willing to do the work, well, that's not really a partnership, right? To me, that's not equal amount, right? I want to make sure that when I bring someone on, that we are clear on what their job role is and what your job role is. So, or my job role. So you may go in thinking, hey, I'm just going to do this for one property. This person's going to teach me and I'm good to go. The other person may be going, you know what? I've got someone for life and they are just going to grind for me every single day. After 2 or 3 deals, you may be like, wait a second, I'm not doing this anymore. This doesn't work for me. So my suggestion is, if you're going to do a JV or a partnership, make sure that you are bringing equal amounts to the table. Make sure that you're very well funded and capitalized, and that money is sitting in a third-party trust that is there for the emergency reserves, and that reserve is always there. And I'm not definitely get an attorney involved, without a doubt, a third-party attorney. It's one of those trust but verify, in my opinion. Next thing I would suggest is have an expectation meeting and an alignment conversation with them. What do you expect of the partnership? What are you expecting to do for work? What are you expecting to get back in return? And make it very clear. Write it out. Have them write it out. So make sure everybody is on the same page. I had a buddy of mine. He had about 1,200 units of apartments. He had about 70 partners in all of them. And he said it was the worst experience of his life. He said it's like you dated someone for 3 days, you married them, and then you found out the person was crazy, except he was married to 70 people. And everybody had a different definition of happiness. And he said it was the worst experience he ever had in his life. So be very careful about partnerships. The next thing I would suggest you do is, if you are married or have a spouse or significant other or children, or they do, have a conversation with everybody together, right? This is where it gets very gray and sticky downstream. I would suggest you have that conversation and you're like, hey, look, this is best case scenario. This is worst case scenario. We are going to be somewhere in between. This is the time commitment it takes. This is the capital it's going to take. If we have a cash call and we have a maintenance issue, this is how it's going to be handled. Is everybody in agreement with this? You may get someone else's spouse that says, wait a second, I'm not buying into this. Isn't that something that you would rather know now than before you get in a partnership with someone? And after 2 or 3 deals, they're like, I don't have the money to fix the roof. Well, now you've either got to decide, do I pay the money to fix the roof? Do I kick them out of the partnership? What do I do? And then it goes downhill from there. I've had many people that said, oh, you don't understand. Like, I grew up with this person. Like, we grew up in school together. We're from 5 years old. I'm like, that is exactly why you have to have this conversation, to keep it business and keep it professional. The next thing I would suggest you do, Amanda, is discuss the divorce. Discuss the conversation of what happens if we just don't get along and we are going to part ways. I want to know, what do we do? How do we handle that? And this has to be documented, and it's got to be written out and clear. If we decide this doesn't work, who takes the assets, who takes the debt, whose name is the credit under, all of those things. If you have a problem, or the person has a problem having that conversation now, how do you think it's going to be when it's in the heat of battle and you need $50,000 to fix something, and you've got a lawsuit looming over your head and you need to get some lawyers? Something happens. You think they're going to pony up then? Probably not, right? So especially if your name is on the hook on the loan or liability or whatever it is. The other thing I would say is, if you do some kind of partnership, a recommendation, again, talk to an attorney. I'm not an attorney, not trying to be one, for the record. But I would recommend that you get life insurance policies on each other, that if the other person should pass or something should happen, that the life insurance policy will pay off the other person, their debt, any spouses, so that you can take full control of the assets. Because next thing you know, you may have a business partner that passes away, and now you're dealing with the business partner's spouse that knows nothing about real estate, never wanted to be involved in real estate, and now you have a partner that you never realized you would have or want to have, and neither did they. So get life insurance policies on each other to cover the debt owed, so that you can split it off, in my opinion. So hopefully that helps. All right, let me keep looking. Wow, there's a lot of them here. Let's see. All right, AJ Jones here. What is your thoughts on currently having an expensive vacant unit on the market? Oh, that's a good question. I guess my first question is what do you define as expensive, right? It's a very tough term, right? Depending on where you live, right? Every state is different, every city is different, every microclimate is different. So expensive is a relative term. I am a believer that sometimes you take a base hit and don't always try to get a home run, right? So sometimes you're going to kill it. Sometimes you just want to get on base. So what I would say when it comes to this is a lot of people have the perception that the only way you make money is by cash flow, by renting a property and getting the cash flow. And I know a lot of people live on that theory. Sometimes they need it to survive, and that's fine. I don't exactly agree that that is the only way you make money. And that's not the only way I look at a deal. If I'm looking to buy a deal or sell a deal, or if someone asks me. So, you're going to make money by having a tenant in the property and paying down the debt, right? Someone else is paying the mortgage. Right now, AJ, you are paying down the debt, I'm assuming. Hopefully you are, if you have a debt servicing on it. But you are paying that down. So you get a resident in there, tenant's paying it. At least they're paying the mortgage down, okay? Second thing you're getting is you're able to depreciate that property, right? So you get 27 and a half years. If I'm assuming this is a house, per the IRS, you can do a accelerated, but let's just say standard 27 and a half years. You're getting depreciation on that. Then you're getting, if you bought the property, you probably have some equity. You probably have some equity capture in the deal. Cash flow, we said we're not getting, but you're also getting appreciation, right? So if you're planning to hold this over a long period of time, you're holding this. So my point is that you've got 5 reasons that you make money in real estate. 5, right? You're not getting one of them, right? Cash flow, you're not getting because maybe you've got a certain price point and no one's renting it, I'm assuming. If you are not getting that, why don't you still take advantage of the other 4, right? Equity capture, you're not going to get because you already own the property, but now you got 3, right? So you've got debt pay down, you've got depreciation, you've got appreciation. You're still making some money is my point. So don't just assume that you're not making any money on it just because you're not getting cash flow. And to me, even if somebody's paying 3/4, right, that's still better than you paying 100. So I would say whatever the rents are right now, get it rented, get it occupied, because the mental stress of you dealing with this is huge, right? So you've got to understand there's a mental strain of having a vacant property. Has anyone ever had a vacant property? Am I the only one that's had a vacant property for a long time, right? It sucks, right? There's nothing good about it, right? There's no positive spin except to go, maybe I need to price it better next time per the market. And remember, just because you rented it at something before, there is no guarantee that you're going to rent it for that now. And so a lot of us, we think like, well, I rented it for $2,500 before, I want $2,500 again. Well, there's some extenuating circumstances right now that cause us not to, number one. Number two, why is it that we feel entitled to get what we got before? Like we feel like it's a ladder every time, right? Sometimes it goes down. It's cyclical, right? Real estate is cyclical. Wintertime is a lot more dead than the summertime. There's not as many people moving around. So if you have a vacant property in the wintertime, without people moving around, it's price and demand, right? So price and demand tells you that not as many people are looking, better lower the price, right? It's either price or product, I've always learned. If they're calling on the property, that means it's priced correctly per your area. If they go to the property and they don't rent it, there's something wrong with the product. So if they're not even calling on your property, it's just not priced correctly for the current market. So what do? You lower the price. You lower the price, you fix your problem, right? In my opinion. Does it suck? Yes. Could you be losing money? That's up to a matter of opinion, but you'll be not stressed. And to me, that's got to count for something. So I like these, by the way, keep these messages coming. I think these are great. So if I can keep helping, I will. Let's see here. Hello from Greece, Demetrius Mathesis. All right. All the way from Greece. I would say you probably for me, but you probably just because bigger pockets and I just happen to be the guy on. So I'll take it though. All right. Hello from Greece. What's the best period to buy someone? To buy someone. You want to buy someone? 3 to 6 months. Do you see the prices will go down, and how much percent? I think that prices will go down, in my opinion. I'm not sure if you're buying in Greece. I'm not sure of the market there. I know it's depressed. But I think in general, this is a world economy, which tells me that the whole world, it's kind of almost like one currency right now, right? And so I think because of that, we are going to feel the effects all over. And so I think that if you wait, the prices will go down. How much? Man, I don't know. That's a tough one, right? I think if you're watching the numbers and you're seeing the data and if all of a sudden they open up these shops, right? And people start going back to work and half the shops don't open, that kind of tells me that could be a bigger problem, right? Because all these people that work in those shops probably rent properties. If they rent properties, they're not going to be renting anymore. Or if they own properties, they could be selling them. But there could be a flood on the market, which changes the dynamics. So the answer is there is no answer. Nobody knows. I do think it is not going to be a quick rebound at all. I think it's going to be slow, and I think we're going to see more sputters of it going down. Just the information I have is that we are in for a long ride. And again, we're in round 1 of a 12-round fight. And I don't think that we are out of this by any means anytime soon, is my opinion. I think that there are going to be deals. I think the people that are shoring up capital, that have the money to move, and they're ready to take action will be the ones that capitalize on this. The ones that are still thinking that they should get some money and thinking that they should talk to someone, this thing will be over before you know it, and you will not be able to capitalize because you're not going to be able to get any loans, right? The banks are going to shut down. They are not going to be lending on anything that they feel is risky. If they're, I know that they're already talking about shutting down HELOCs and they're tightening up and they're cramping up because they want to see another 2008. So it's kind of like they touched the hot stove once, they don't want to touch it again. So what are they doing? They're starting to crimp up. So if you don't have the capital, I would start talking to family members. I would get all of my reserves ready to go so that when I see deals, I can make a move. Now, the question is how do you know when there's a deal? Well, you start looking at properties now. You start looking at the numbers, right? Because the numbers are what dictate the deal. So I would start looking in my area that I think I want to buy in, very focused, right? Because it doesn't matter what the rest of the world is doing. I only care about what's going on in my micro area that I'm going to own a rental property in. I could care less about everything else going on. You've got to focus, right? Push out the white noise and just focus. So what you want to do, in my opinion, is focus on this area, focus on the prices. So let's just say you see price points that are at, we'll just say 200,000, 200,000, 210, 209, okay, 190. Interesting. 180, more interesting. All of a sudden you see it 150, 120, 110. Now okay, they were at 200. Now it's time to make a move. But unless you've been watching numbers and you're watching the trend lines, you will never be paying attention to the data. And so that's why I say pay attention to the data. Start just looking at the numbers. It's free to look, right? Just start looking, because as you look, you're going to start seeing these trend lines and you're going to see outliers. And once you start seeing one outlier, 2 outliers, 3 outliers, now you're going, okay, maybe there's something here. Then I would be looking at rent prices. What are they renting for? So what am I buying it for? What am I renting it for? What's the delta difference? So that's what I would suggest you do. And again, it's free to do it. The challenge is most people, they don't go and look at this stuff and do this until they have the money in their hand, and then they run out and buy something. And they're like, I don't know if it's a good deal or bad deal. It's like, well, shit, you had 2 years to practice. Why weren't you paying attention when it was free? Now you own this thing, and now it's not free anymore, because once that money goes hot, now you're responsible for it. And that's when stuff gets real. So let's see here. Let's see. Luke, like the analogy. Yeah. Can you get a positive outcome out of the market that has been depreciating? Gabriel Gutierrez. And by the way, guys, keep bringing the messages, because this helps me, and hopefully this helps everybody else. If this is helping, give me a thumbs up if you like this. If you don't, give me a thumbs up so I can still get the thumbs up. But yeah, keep giving me the comments, because this does help. And I think it's helping a lot of other people as well. There's people on Instagram. I can't see the Instagram questions. I'm sure they're there, but it's too far for me to reach. Anyways, Gabriel asks, can you get a positive outcome out of a market that is depreciating 1 to 3% since 2001. I think you can get a positive outcome out of anywhere because again, it depends on what you're buying for. Now, the question is if the numbers don't add up, why would you keep buying in that market, right? With today's technology, right? You can buy something anywhere in the world. I know people that are buying stuff in Malaysia, in Thailand. So, a lot of times we think we're restricted to our city, our state, our country. We're not. You can buy stuff anywhere. You just have to open up your mind. The technology is there, right? You are able to utilize technology to go anywhere. So if it's not working, if the strategy you have is not getting you to your goal, Gabriel, what you need to do is you need to focus your strategy in another market and start looking in another area, right? There is other people that buy. Foreign people come into the US all the time and buy properties, right? We think it's so difficult to go into other countries and buy properties. People do it all the time. I used to go speak in China and there was people all over there that were dying to buy in Texas and they were buying up everything. And I'm thinking like, wow, that's cool. Like, I wonder why we don't buy in other states. But in other states, everybody comes to the US and buys. But if the numbers don't work, I know a good friend of mine, I won't say his name, but during the global recession of 2008, he went to Australia and bought hundreds of properties in Australia because there was a good place to buy because the US was not. So those are people that are forward thinking. So my point is, Gabriel, is try not to restrict yourself to just one geographic location, especially with technology these days. I mean, we got people on here from Greece and everywhere else. I saw a couple others. I don't know where. A couple other people. The point is that technology is here, And again, I think it goes back to fear. And I'm curious, people that are on here, I'd like to know what is it that we fear? Like, why do we have this huge thing that we want to avoid fear, right? And so I'm curious if anyone can give me their perception of, if they're willing to be open, and I'm happy to help you if you're open and you ask me like, what is it that makes you avoid this fear? Is it the fear of looking bad? Is it fear of failing? And if so, like, what do you think will happen to you? Because once I talk to people that talk about failing and the fear of it, what it comes down is they fear looking bad. They fear looking dumb, right? That's why public speaking is one of the most feared things over death, because they don't want to look bad. They'd rather die than go up on stage and look bad. When you think about that, it doesn't even make sense. But in the heat of battle, I mean, I've spoken in front of very large audiences, and I tell you, you get that knot in your stomach, right? I mean, it can be very intimidating to go out in front of a couple thousand people and speak, but nothing happens, right? At the end of the day, you may screw up, but you're still fine, right? The night happens, the day happens, and you kind of go, okay, what could I do differently? So a lot of us have that fear, but it's not real. And so, we have these things that keep us up at night, and it is a reality, right? There's no doubt fear is real, but is it necessary, right? I guess that's my question. Is the fear that everybody has, do you need to have this fear, or is it just something made up in your mind that you could overcome? And instead of calling it fear, you could call it opportunity. And just by changing the words that you use, the thought patterns that you have can change your whole life and your dynamic and how you invest, right? All of these things can change in an instant if you just change the words you use and change how you think, right? And it seems so simple, right? Some people say it's not that simple. It actually is. Like, if you listen to the words that people say, right? Whenever I'm talking to someone and I hear the language patterns that they have and the words that they say, I can come pretty close to figuring out how much money and how much wealth this person has. Not accurately, but pretty close, just by how they talk and how they use their words and how they think about things and how they act about things, right? It's that easy to notice if you're looking for it. If you're not looking for it, you wouldn't notice. But if you're paying attention and you start looking, you would be amazed at the words people use. And then what you need to do is you need to look around at the people around you. And you need to really ask yourself, what are the people around me, my favorite 5 people that I hang around with, what kind of words do they use? What kind of TV do they watch? What fear do they talk about? Do we bitch about the same things all the time? If that's the case, you probably, generally, they say you make about $2,000 to $3,000 a year, about the same amount as everybody you hang around with, right? Because either they bring you down or you bring them up. And statistically, you don't bring them up. Statistically, they will bring you down. That's just how it is, right? It's a lot harder to pull a whole group of people up than it is for the group to pull one person back in. So sometimes you got to really think about yourself saying, okay, who am I hanging around and what are the things that they telling me? And are they perpetuating this fear by that's all they're talking about? I mean, that's what the news does, right? I mean, has anybody ever heard one good thing about the news in the last 3 weeks, 3 months? I haven't. I mean, I don't watch the news that much, but it's normally not made to do that. That's not the reason news exists. Bad news sells, right? Fear sells. And we live on that fear. 70% of the words and thoughts that go through our brain are negative. So it's just matching up exactly. And you go, I knew it, Anyways, so let's see here. We got a lot of them. Okay. Here we go. Renata. Pros and cons of buying a triplex in a rough neighborhood. Should I hire a property management company to avoid dealing with tenants? Well, Renata, I would say you probably have not read my book, because I lived that life of owning properties in bad neighborhoods, duplexes, triplexes, houses, you name it. And I can tell you that it was the worst experience of my life. I got taught lessons, and I grew up in a pretty rough part of East LA growing up. And I got taught some very good lessons owning rental properties in the tougher areas of Houston, right? And some of the lessons I learned were things that, again, I could say they were failures. I now think of them as lessons because it helped me. I wrote a book about it. It helped me so much. I guess my question is why are you buying the triplex, right? What's the reason you're buying it? Because the challenge with these properties is with triplexes, I'm not a fan of these properties. Number one, you've got 3 families living together that are separated by one wall, which is very, very tough. There's no rule or law that says they have to get along or like each other. So now it becomes adult daycare where you're basically doing daycare for these people. And if the meters are not split off, you're doing all bills paid. So now basically they're trying to govern how much water and air and shit they're using. Normally, if it's in a rough area, it's going to be a higher tenant turnover statistically, or you're going to have to bend the rules. And if you bend the rules, property management company is probably not going to manage it because they will get sued if they bend rules, which you will get sued if you bend the rules. And a property management company, for the amount of money that they make, so they may make a percentage off the rent, it's not worth the time normally for all the work that they do. So when I was managing, when we had our company and we were managing about 1,000 properties, it was funny because our properties at one point were the most time consuming of the whole company. And so we actually had the worst properties of the whole portfolio. So we ended up selling a lot of them, another story. But what we realized is we did a time study. And the time study was that we started seeing properties. Now this is in Houston, Texas, and average rent in Houston, this is probably about maybe 5-6 years ago, average rent was about $1,300 a month across the city. So we said, okay, anything under, I think it was like $900 a month, anything under $900, let's do a time study. And anything over, let's do a time study. After a year, 50% more time was used for the under 900 properties. So the $900 rent properties and less took up almost 50% more time for less money. So when you look at it from a ownership company, of a management company, it takes me more staff to staff that thing, those types of properties for half the pay. It doesn't financially make sense, which I learned when I had our properties and we were getting our ass kicked we had a huge vacancy. We didn't know what we were doing. And this is before we had to start our company. We actually tried to hand them over to a management company. And the management company said, we won't take them. And I was like, what do you mean you won't take them? I think we had at the time, 30 properties. And they were like, these things will never make you money. you will never stop the problems. This is the model for these properties. So if you want to get these properties, now I know a lot of people that are very, very successful with these. Don't get me wrong. The people that we sold them to, they did great because they had a different business model. I wanted to have a business model that was passive income and that would be running on their own. That is not these types of properties. So if you get them, that's cool, but just make sure you understand the business model you're getting into, which is a very hands-on business model, which is time intensive. And as long as you're okay doing that and you can wrap your hands around doing that, and you probably are not going to get a property management company to take care of it, and you're okay doing it on your own and bending the rules and bending the laws and stuff, because, I get it. Sometimes they're month to month. Sometimes you got to make stuff happen. I get that. But if you're standing in court in front of a judge and you're getting sued, they don't care about that because the law is the law, which I didn't know at the time. Luckily, I never got sued, but good lesson to learn. So my point is if you want to own these properties, that's fine. Just make sure you know what business model you're in, because that's where it gets a little scary. Hopefully that helped or made you not buy it. All right. Jay Romano, I fear being beholden to my job and a 401k more than the fear of investing in business and real estate. I agree, Jay. I'll tell you, prior to 9/11, my personal experience as an airline pilot, September 10th, 2001, I had the best job in the world. I was flying an airplane. I was all over the world, loving life. I couldn't have asked for a better career. Safe, secure job. I loved it. 2011 or 2001, 9/11 hits, right? We all know tragic day that happened then. And then September 13th, 2001, my safe, secure job, I was given a furlough notice that basically said, hey, thanks for playing, but we don't think we need you anymore. And we're going to put you out on the street with 50,000 other pilots. Thanks a lot. And so now this safe, secure job that I thought was untouchable just got ripped off like a Band-Aid. So, when 2008 happened, we kind of knew the industry was changing, right? There's a little bit of prep time. This is very similar to 9/11, but there are going to be a lot of people like myself that get a very, very rude awakening. And it is like a punch in the face like you have never imagined. So that is what got me into real estate, because I realized that I never, ever wanted to be basically have someone else have control of my life and be able to dictate what happens to me in my future. And that's basically what happened. Is I was told I wasn't going to have a job. And now, luckily, I got within 30 guys from the bottom of a 6,000 pilot seniority list. I got pushed out. I was flying out of Newark. I was flying out of Cleveland. I was flying out all these other cities that I didn't live in the snow and all this stuff. And I couldn't even complain because at least I had a job. Everyone below me was out of a job. So I couldn't even bitch about it. But what I realized is that if anything happened, right, if there was a hiccup in the industry, I was going to get pushed out the bottom without anything that had anything to do with me. Like you think of 9/11, right? You think of what's going on right now. None of us did anything to make this happen, right? People that are in restaurants are losing everything. They had nothing to do with this, right? They have a job, they have a 401k, they have all these things, right? But nobody ever caused this to happen, right? And so, but they are affected by this because you're downstream. And that was the day I told myself, I will never, ever put myself or my family or anyone in this position again that someone else can dictate what my life looks like. And that's what got me on the path of real estate. And now I've had a lot of people reach out to me, on Instagram and Facebook and say like, man, is this like in your book, you wrote about this in 9/11? And I'm like, this is exactly what happened, except the difference is it's been 20 years, give or take. And I took action, and the action that I took has changed my life forever. Now, I know a lot of people in the airline industry, they didn't take any action back then. And now they're sitting there sweating it again, right? Now, if I lost my job I still fly for the airline. So I still am an airline pilot. If it happened again, I would be okay. I mean, obviously nobody likes to lose a career job, but I would be fine. I could live no problem, right? Because I have my assets, because I have real estate and I've got other stuff. So my point is I agree with you, Jay. Do not get tied to that job in 401k. the challenge is, and I don't know what you do and what you're doing right now. The challenge is we don't do what we should, we do what we must, right? And so you should invest in real estate. You shouldn't rely on your job. You shouldn't just rely on your 401k. But until you get it ripped from you and you must do something different, you may not do anything until it's too late. So the only thing we have is time, right? That's all we all have here is we have time. And so because of our time and what we're doing, that is the only thing that we can do is do it with action and do it now. Because if I waited this 20 years and did nothing, I would be still right back where I was. Airlines are not flying. Everything's shut down. People are like, hey, man, are you worried? I'm like, actually, no. I haven't flown in a month and a half. I'm cool. Like, it's fine. So because I took action, I'm okay. If you wait and go, I'm going to, they say someday is the busiest day on the calendar because that's what everyone says someday, but someday never comes. So if you're saying someday you're going to do something, again, like I told you, I learned firsthand that life has a very interesting way of coming back at you with the speed and velocity of a wrecking ball and smashing everything in its way to teach you a lesson. And when it does, it is very fierce. So I get a lot of people that are feared and they're scared and they're nervous, but what's the alternative, right? And that's what you have to ask yourself. What is the alternative of doing nothing, right? The alternative of doing nothing is being in the path of this wrecking ball. At least doing something, you have a chance of taking action, right? Good decision, bad decision, just make a decision, right? Don't just sit there and do nothing because that is exactly how people fail, right? I'm sure you'd rather fail by trying than fail by sitting there and doing nothing. And that's what a lot of us do. We analyze, we discuss this, we do that, and we never even leave the couch. We never even get up, right? And the house is burning around us and we're just sitting there doing nothing. And so I learned that, and obviously you can tell I'm passionate about that because I don't want to even say I was a victim of this. I was affected by this, but you know what? I got hit in the face and I swung back. And for the last 20 years, I've been swinging, building a business, building real estate, doing all these things, educating myself. I read every day. I listen to podcasts, audibles. I'm involved with Bigger Pockets. Bigger Pockets doesn't pay me to do this. I do this because I want to give back and I want to help. And so I do this to try to help everybody else, because if I can help somebody take action and somebody to do something that they weren't doing, then I feel that I've done my part. And I feel that I wish that somebody would have told me that this was coming and that you could have done something, because I had no idea. I had studied my whole life to be a pilot. I never wanted to do anything else except be a pilot. I learned my lesson. And so if I can teach everyone here that lesson, then that is a good thing, I guess. So it is about that time, I think. Everybody, I hope everybody got something out of this today. It's been an hour. I've got a couple other shows I have to do. So thank you, everybody. If you got this, please give me a thumbs up. And because Facebook and Bigger Pockets maybe will have me back next week. If not, maybe they won't have me back. But anyways, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Appreciate everything you guys do. I'm on Instagram as Rozenberg Steve. I'm doing a lot of stuff with Bigger Pockets. They are great. If you haven't been to their page, I don't know where you've been in the world, but go to their website, biggerpockets.com. They've got a ton of information in their forums. That's how I learned a lot of stuff personally, as well as all their YouTube channels and everything. And they do it all for free, which is pretty cool, I got to say, which is why I do a lot of stuff with them. So everybody, thank you so much. I will be back next Thursday, I believe. I'll be in Brazil, flying a trip to Sao Paulo. So I will be in Brazil doing this, hopefully remotely from there. So everybody, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, everybody else. We will talk to you guys next week. And don't be afraid to fail. Just do it and get back up. That is my parting words. See you guys. Bye-bye.